You guys don't know this, but Donnie came out of nowhere like Derek White and saved the show because I had this setting set up for this show to go live right after the banner logo that we played the 30-second countdown, and it didn't work. So Donnie's my Derek White tonight because he saved the show because we could have went on for a whole hour and it wouldn't have recorded. I probably should have looked, Donnie, and made sure it automatically switched over.
I check every time after our first show.
Right.
I was going to use it as the timer, so like I noticed as soon as you were like, let's do 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, God.
So
you would poke the Derek White bullcrap, too.
Hey, man, the guy is a Celtics fan. It worked so well. You were the Derek White savior of this show, Donnie. But we found that doing the first 10 minutes of the most prominent NBA is the most prominent right now, but the most prominent story of the sports realm will open up the first 10 minutes of every show doing that and just let you guys fly off the cuff. So you guys know the crew already. Donnie, Gov, 10 minutes. Let's go.
Gov, go first.
Oh, my God, Game 6. Okay, so first off, that was actually a pretty good game. Tatum didn't look great, but he had a lot of moments throughout. That's like he would look kind of crappy.
25.5 half.
Yeah, like I said, he didn't, and it's weird because in that 25-point half, I didn't think he was like overtly dominating. He just had these huge spots that were big, and it like all was through him. Smart wasn't able to do much. No one else did much, like offensively. And then like and Jimmy Butler was like he was legit playing like passively, just straight up like straight. He was just looking to pass every single time.
Jimmy buckets.
The fourth quarter, that fourth quarter, oh my God, like that fourth quarter makes me think that Miami can just totally win this. It's like that. It is so lucky who wins this series. But like I had Miami in 6, so all my stuff's gone. Like I was thinking Miami in 6 and then Denver in 7. Now I don't see why Boston doesn't win at home in Game 7. It's going to be like for them to come back down 0-3. What's the stat? Like 0-150?
150.
So it's going to be 1-150?
Yep.
Do I really think it's about to be 1-150 all time?
The first time it's ever been back at home in a Game 7 after being down 0-3.
Yeah, that would make it that rare scenario where it could happen that way. So, that being said, going 7, I think Denver wins in 5 when they play Boston. I think now whoever they play, it's a 5-game series. Denver's rested. You're going to have to play 2 to 3 games in altitude. That's the toughest series for either Boston or Miami to play.
It's going to be a tough series for both. I don't think – well, you know what concerns me about the series going out now? Bam, I don't think will have the want to be dominant. We've seen it many times. Bam does not show up in the big moments against a good big. He looked passive last time. He looked somewhat passive Game 5.
He didn't look as passive as I thought, but both him and Butler could not hit shots all game. If Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent aren't hitting the shots that they hit, the Heat are down 20 just like they were the game before, instead of down 6 to 8.
This is the difference between Himmy buckets and Jason Tate him. All right? That's all I'm going to say. Tatum didn't do much, but he showed up when it mattered.
Wait,
good on Jimmy, though.
He had good moments. He
played good defense.
Jimmy, he had good moments and was okay throughout the game with very good like spots.
We're not on the game yet.
And Jimmy Butler was just on meh. And then in the fourth quarter, like the last 10 points for the Heat to bring them back, and then that shot that gets reviewed. He's behind the. He had like you see in the replay. You see in the replay all time. Like we can get to that too, but you see in the replay, he clearly knows getting his feet behind the line before he just throws it up. He knows that the most important thing is making sure that if I get this random foul with 2 seconds left, it's 3 free throws.
Do you know how aggravated I was when I saw Tatum switch off and Al Horford was there? I was so angry. Insurmountably. Just
but
the
that's
anger
what
yelled
Boston's going to do.
I know. And it irritates me every time. Let Tatum do his job. Tatum step up and tell Coach Mozzarella Sticks.
Then again, it might be a better defensive way. Like if you know Tatum's not going to get around Horford to Jimmy, would you rather Horford be on him to force that weird foul that you know Jimmy's probably going to pull and hope that he didn't get his feet in and it's only 2? Or do you make Tatum keep on it and maybe Jimmy gets a wide open 3 from the corner because Tatum can't get there in time going around? Like it's not as easy to just go under and keep with your guy. That's why teams switch. That's why one of the reasons like Boston's pretty good because they play that switch defense.
Hold on. Donnie said about 5 minutes ago he wasn't going to say anymore, and then went on to say about 10 more things.
It's fine.
Gov is gushing over here because of the game, and I get it was an exciting game. I have to get two things off my chest. One, this is the only game that I did not watch live.
Really? That's so sad.
Damn. I was wondering why no one was saying anything in Discord.
And it was because I'm like, I've watched all the games. It's probably going to go 7, but if it doesn't, the Heat will win most likely. And my mom came home from vacation, so family time took over. And I'm like, you know what? It's the right weekend to go because outside of this game, there's not a whole lot of other sports on. Like UFC was off. It's pretty much PGA at that point. So I'm like, I'm probably good. Now, I went back and watched it. Of course, I watched the clips. But it was cool because I got to relive it. And I know you guys are excited, and there was good reason to be excited about this game. But that's the reason I have this image pulled up here. It's all the playoff teams and major players in a sleepover talking about the offseason and what they plan and things they used to do, or people that you want to get together with, stuff like that. At this point, I don't think any of you know what you want or what you want to have happen, which is good for the NBA. I just think it's pure excitement and nervousness. Because you can say like, oh, well, the Boston's going to win now, right? Because they came back in the historical story. But Donnie, let's be honest. If I asked you a week ago if you thought the Celtics had a chance, you would tell me no.
I said no. I said I think the series is over. But I just said I wanted it to look respectable in the end.
Yeah. So what I'm asking now is, now that the Celtics have a chance to win in Game 7, like why are you so sure that they won't lose?
That they won't fold? I honestly, it's Bam. It comes down to Bam. If Bam does not give them,
you said the series is over. So what I'm saying is like that's what I mean about these precautionation. It's like I wanted to get my mouth shut because I have problems with both of these teams, and I think both of the problems with these teams has really shown their ass. To be honest with you,
the first 3 games definitely. It showed with the Celtics. The last 3 games it showed with the Heat. Well, not Game 6, not Game 6. Game
6 was like a duel. Like that's the thing. You're completely right, Logan. This could just be like they had the dual Game 6, and now they'll have the dual Game 7 after Boston showed how they can just be like discombobulated and the coaches and experience and all the stuff the first 3 games compared to like the Heat. And then the Heat in the next 2 games are just completely outclassed because if Jimmy Butler and Bam aren't doing their shit, they are a team of undrafted guys mostly. And now, Kevin Love.
Gov, I want to ask you though, because like I think you're on the same page as me. It makes very good basketball. Like because we can't ask Donnie because he's a fan of the Celtics. As just a fan of basketball, this like I would call it a frenetic pace. Like this unorganized, you can't finish, you can't kill us mentality is really fun to watch. It's just a basketball purist.
Agreed.
But is it a failure of both teams? Like, would you call either one of these teams good?
Oh, they're both good. These are both really good NBA teams.
I think they're both
for different reasons, though.
They're not great, but they're good. They're not like historically great.
I honestly think both of these teams are diaper teams. Like, I honestly think people like the Western Conference has better teams. But it's similar to the argument of the NFL and the NFL as a whole, but with the AFC and the NFC, it's like most likely we will not get the best Super Bowl this upcoming year. It is true that the AFC has more exciting teams, right? But I'm not for realignment. I'm not for changing the playoff structure for the NFL, just like I'm not for changing for the NBA. It's okay for these teams to be shitty and for us to be like, that's the fun of it, because Denver and Miami or Denver and Boston don't match up a lot. So sometimes it doesn't got to be the best basketball to be the most entertaining version of basketball.
Well, I'll run you through the emotion, the roller coaster of emotion that went through my house last night.
That's what I'm talking about, Donnie, though, just really quickly. That roller coaster is the fun of sports to me. It's not, is this team better than this team? Are these the two best teams? No, you want the roller coaster. I promise you will remember watching this game with your mom or what you had for dinner, or like me and my uncle used to bet on the Super Bowl. We don't do that stuff anymore. I miss that, but I'll never have that again. So like cherish those moments. They're just as important. That's all I mean.
So when it was 98-91, I think the score was.
Right.
We kind of were like, oh God, it's happening again. We're choking this lead again. Whatever. Because it's the same song and dance all season long. It's like all you could think as a Celtics fan at that moment is just give us one bucket.
Right.
1 3, 1 Tatum dunk, anything to keep them afloat. And then he go on a run. And the run doesn't look like it's stopped. And then all the fouls start to get called. And you're like, okay, here it goes. The Celtics are going to complain about the refs. And that didn't happen. For the first time all year, it looked like they locked in, said, okay, we just got kicked in the mouth, and we're going to kick them back in the mouth again. I've been waiting for it for so long. And when that foul happens and the challenge happens, like, what are we doing? But I feel like they would have corrected
Butler
that
hits
anyway.
all 3 free throws.
Then
the
Butler
arena's
falls.
just there.
I saw the first free throw, and it was the most clean free throw ever. I was like, he's not going to miss a single one.
Nope, he's going to be
It's
up
over.
103. And then it's 3 seconds left, and they go and ball Tatum, so you have to get it to Smart.
Yeah.
Smart jacks up a 3.
Smart shot that shot.
It's solid, but it doesn't go in. But who the fuck? Why did the Poodle do that? Why? When did the Poodle show up in a fucking playoff game?
Right.
He led the team in scoring last week. Game 5, he led the team in scoring.
Poodle for MVP. Poodle for MVP. That's what it is.
Listen, when Smart shot that shot, my hands went on my head. I was on the ground before the shot happened. The shot was like went up, and my hands were just on my head. I looked kind of down, but I'm still peeking at the screen, and I see Derek White fly out of nowhere. And as soon as I saw that shot tip around that rim, I knew it was in, and I just got everyone in the house just kind of jumped up, and we all screamed. I called a bunch of my friends back in where I used to live in Mass. It was just the most ridiculous moment I can remember as a fan, because we all freaked out.
Now, Donnie, I want to set something up, and I want to go back to that exact moment in just a second, so be ready. I think me and Gov are about the same age, so he probably remembers this very well. For me, that moment was San Antonio Spurs, Los Angeles Lakers playoff moment, Derek Fisher turnaround to win the game. That was like the first .03 jump shot that ever counted.
I remember that one.
The Lakers went on and went. I know that shot.
Shaq and Kobe, yep.
Those moments are ingrained in my head. But I promise you, the things I remember most is just like being in the room with my friends. It was one of the last times that we were like just total like young. We were like on the verge of like high school, college. And it was like one of the times when we didn't have girlfriends, we didn't have jobs, responsibilities. It was like one of those times where we were like just frozen in pure excitement of sports. And I'm telling you, Donnie, that moment that you had yesterday will literally live on probably your entire life.
There are 2 moments I can ever call back like that. This game last night and the Malcolm Butler interception. Those are the 2 games that left me shaking, literally shaking with excitement for 10 minutes after the game.
But here's my point, though. It's like, I don't even think you will care about the sporting outcome. Like, of course, I'm glad Derek Fisher hit that shot because Kobe and Shaq.
Both Derek's, by the way.
Funny enough, ironically, because, they're really what will go down is probably historic NBA moments. But these are the moments that, like, transcend sports. Like, you will remember where you are, especially if you're a fan like I was with Derek Fisher and you are with the Celtics. But even Gov will probably remember where, if he was watching with his dad or his brother or like his son. And it's so cool that it happened on Memorial Day weekend because more people are with their families. Like, I'm telling you, stuff like that gives me chills. It still gives me chills, damn it, to this moment.
And for it to be my favorite Celtic, that makes the moment so much sweeter. I have been raving about Derek White for a year now.
Yeah.
And he, with Brogdon out that game, with like finally resting that elbow to like maybe he'll be able to play a little bit in the finals if they get there. But like for Derek White to come into the starting lineup and play like this.
Well, he's been starting most.
And like Brogdon's been hurt all series, but Derek White, they didn't move to Robert Williams till what, game 2? Game 3?
Game 2, game 3, yeah.
That's when they switched Robert and Derek White?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was about then when they're like, we need to get another guard in there because Brogdon's rotation needs to be cut a little bit because of his elbow.
Now,
they've made that switch a couple times, and I think it's just they wanted to go small against Bam.
Well,
it might be that might have helped, but but I think Derek White he also has to play more minutes because Brogdon hasn't been able to play as much and was out last game. He has to be that extra guard playing some minutes, and he's been playing very, very well.
He has Jimmy. When he guards Jimmy, I forget the exact percentage, but I think it's like Jimmy is 17 of 41 with Derek White on him. That's solid for Derek White. Derek White's got a couple blocks on him this series.
Mm-hmm.
Derek White is. We all know if you watch basketball, you know Derek White's a very good defender. Good. When he Boston media, when the trade happened, Boston media did not love that trade. And I will tell you, there is an article why this will be one of the worst trades in the history of the NBA for the Celtics. It will go down as one of the worst trades ever, is one of the exact quotes.
Donnie,
ridiculous quote.
we have receipts on our love for St. Brown when he got drafted for the Lions. We have receipts when I was right about Russell Westbrook. Now, I have plenty of receipts where I was wrong, and we were transparent about that with a fun show a couple weeks ago. You guys can go back and listen to that as well, where we went through like some of our simple predictions that didn't work out. This show is totally based on transparency. And just to prove your point, because I don't have any one-for-one receipts of it, Gov didn't know you at the time. So let me ask him a question. Gov has no idea what we were talking about at the time, but this will totally prove that you were ahead of Derek White's call. Gov, do you remember the player the Lakers got from the Spurs this season?
Lonnie Walker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you had no idea I was going to bring that up. The reason I bring that up is because me and Donnie I got Lonnie Walker and he got Derek White right around the same time, both on the Spurs. And
the Derek White trade was last year, 2022.
Right, but I remember the reason I tied to Walker was I'm like, I love Walker, and you were like, dude, you were gonna love him. I love Derek White. Derek White, the Spurs gave up on Derek White. We got him with the Celtics. The Celtics has totally embraced him. He's gonna be a big time player. And I remember telling you, hey, I love Lonnie Walker. I think the same thing. I think they like Keldon Johnson, and they thought Lonnie Walker and Keldon Johnson were similar. So they let him go, but I really think they messed up because I do think you're right. White and Lonnie Walker are very good players. And I remember you touting Derek White's defense And I was like, yeah, he probably learned that from Pop. So I just want to bring that up. Donnie was way ahead of the curve on that. Way ahead.
Well, I just sent you a DM. I searched it on our Discord message. I said March 5th. No, sorry. Yeah, March 15th, 2022.
Yeah,
Derek White's a sneaky trade that didn't get much attention.
I'll pull that up just now, man. I'll pull it up just now. But as I do that, you guys can finish up this conversation because I think it's great. Go talk to us what you were doing. Like you could talk about it I was watching it with my family. Like you could talk more of the game. Like what was kind of going through your head? Just give people the initial reaction.
Please tell me.
Let's see. Two things watching the game. One, I had to jump out of my room to make sure my brother was watching the game because he was also playing Zelda. I'm like, no, you need to turn on the fourth quarter. You're a Heat fan. Put it on. He didn't think there was going to be any problem.
No, I am so glad you did that because seriously, people underestimate that. If you see something big going on, tell a friend. The UFC
100% with sports. I do that all the time too.
And the second thing I was doing was totally sweating and being pissed off at myself for literally flipping the 2v2 off of the lineup from last night. I get Caleb Martin at captain right. I don't play Derek White and Gabe Vincent. I play Marcus Smart and Cody Zeller.
Derek White didn't have the most pretty stat line. He had 11 3 blocks, and I don't remember anything else. But I know
it was like 6 or 7 rebounds and 4 assists. He actually had like 37 fantasy points. He had a very good game considering his price.
Now, Gov, we're gonna hope that
Donnie the optimal captain over Caleb Martin, maybe.
Gov, we are gonna hope that Donnie didn't set us up here because I just like screen shared this. Hopefully, this is actually some kind of good tweet, Donnie. You didn't set me up to say something terrible here, but this is what you showed me, and I do think, this proves it. You
can search it in the chat. All you need to do is search up Derek White in the chat, and you'd see it.
And you can see the hours of dialogue and all transparency of us going through. So yeah, I want to give you your flowers. You deserve it.
Yep.
I know you like Derek White all the time, but going into that, I don't know why people don't give him he's going to get more attention now. He just hit a game winner. The game before that, he leads Celtics in scoring with 25. He's had a great series. I don't know if it still holds true, but a couple days ago before this game, I saw there was a stat that he's one of 3 players in NBA history to be shooting 50, 45, 90 in a playoffs. He's had a great playoff performance.
Yeah.
He showed up. And his defense has not faltered at all with them.
Guys,
and he's not that 3-point shooter either. Let's be real. He's not anywhere close to a 45% 3-point shooter.
Right. Well, just to be different and just to show people like we care about sports in a very different, and we'll still talk about the mainstream of it. I love, Gov, that you went and told your brother, like, hey, this is a historic moment. You got to encapsulate this moment. Because I did that with my friends when the UFC was first starting with Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin, like when the UFC was just taking off. And to this day, the UFC analytics will prove it out. Nobody was watching because it was like their first reality show where like at the end of the reality show, the 2 best fighters were going to fight. And nobody had watched the series. Like they almost canceled the show. Like it was like a real world kind of like fighting. It was called Ultimate Fighting Championship. And they almost canceled it because no one was watching it, but they put a ton of money into the finale and the fight was just fantastic. And the show leading up to it had very few viewers. You had to be really niche. And the last like 3 rounds of that fight were tremendous. And it just spiked in viewership because of word of mouth. And Twitter last night was on fire. It didn't matter if you were sold. In fact, the 2 biggest Lakers fans, myself and then Van Lathan, who is another, we're going back and forth. I'm going back and forth with a mainstream guy on the Ringer. He didn't even care that I was like a low budget podcaster at that point. We were just basketball fans at that moment. So it brought people together in ways that you would never imagine. It was just a cool moment. It just was cool. It was, and that's kind of my point with the whole thing. It's like they didn't need to be the two best teams in the Eastern Conference. All you want is good sports to bring people together, and it couldn't have happened on a better
And
week.
that, like, the fourth quarter of that game was one of the best.
The
bits
amount of
basketball I've seen.
backbone we saw in that quarter alone from whatever you want to say. The 12 guys that hit the court, I'm not sure if that's the exact number, but you get what I'm saying. The 12 guys on that court in that quarter, the amount of just grit and will to win was so incredible. The defense, the shot making in the end, it was so beautiful to watch. Take the teams out of it, like not being biased. It was sloppy, but it wasn't sloppy bad basketball. It was, we are going to try to will this team. Two teams that did not play well. These teams had bad nights to what we expect them to have.
I'll be honest. I'll even get controversial with it if we have to. I'll skate the line. Remember when Hamlin had his scare like on that Monday night, and then we were like, "Do we do a show? How do we handle it?" And then like that moment brought people together. So like that was the opposite end of it. That brought us together with sports with a kind of scary moment. But to me, that's what sports is about. It's about what magnificent moment, whether it be bad, good, or indifferent, can we learn? Like, not always like who has the best skills. Is LeBron James better than Michael Jordan? Like, those debates are stupid. What's really cool is like when sports transcends race, when it transcends, sexes and different holidays. And you can be like, hey, it's a melting pot. We are here for different reasons. And just like we never want bad things to happen, that does help heal and connect us in ways. And like, so that horrific story was like the most horrible version of it. This was like our celebration moment where it's like, we're just watching really good basketball and it just kept getting bigger and better and better. I don't watch games over. Once I know the outcome of games, I do not watch them. I don't watch series that way. I went back and watched this game over. That tells you how important it was. I wanted to see it, even though I was late. And yes, is there a part of me that's going to be annoyed for probably the rest of my life that I missed maybe one of the most important basketball games of the last 10 years? Probably, but I wanted to go back and at least watch it and relive it in some way.
This is one of the few times I watched most of part of the press conferences afterwards.
Yeah.
I wanted to see how both teams reacted to their demeanor. What I didn't like about it is the Celtics were kind of like in awe and couldn't believe what happened. And if that were me personally, I'm not in awe. I'm, like, this is what we expected to happen. This is what this is what we wanted to happen. It doesn't matter if it was ugly. We came out on top. And they're kind of just sitting there like, oh, like, I'm still shocked. I don't like that quote. Personally.
I'm glad you brought that up, Donnie, because I was trying to think of a way to transition this. And actually, this moment, like, I was trying to think of this a couple of days ago before this game even happened. So I'm glad I was able to tie in with the Hamlin thing. Because I don't know how much of the Sports Center press conference stuff you watched, like, following his health after that moment. But I did want to mention
Actually, that's one of the few times I was watching the press conference again.
So you guys will be proud as sports people. Ryan Clark just received a sports Emmy for that moment. He received Best Live Analyst for a reaction in the reaction category. Gave a tremendous speech. If anyone wants to go back, it was for this year. Mina Kimes tweeted it out. ESPN was big supporters. If you guys want to go back and watch his acceptance speech, it was a beautiful one. And that kind of tells you just like the good and the bad of sports and just like how it can connect us. I thought this year kind of encapsulated all of it. It was really great. The whole thing was great. Any last words, Gov?
Oh God, I'm tired now just thinking about that game.
That's what you should feel, though. Like, literally, when those moments happen, we should feel as sports fans that we're exhausted. Like, our batteries should be recharged or need recharging. But then almost like you don't want to recharge them. You're just hoping you have the energy.
Like I said, there's only two. I know Gov doesn't really have much experience with championship teams and whatnot. But
hey, I was about to say. My brother is a Heat fan, so they've won the title a few times. My dad is a fan of, other than the Browns, he is a fan of winning teams. He's a Laker fan. He's a Yankee fan. Yes, and I'll put it out there now. I may be a fan of the Panthers, and we should have won that Super Bowl. Actually, we should have won both of our Super Bowls. We shouldn't have lost to Peyton Manning in that Denver one. I don't know why Cam didn't just check it down to Tolbert all the time. He was open the whole fucking game on the chip. Every time he ran that chip and look, he was open, and Cam never hit him. He kept looking downfield. I was saying at halftime of that game that Cam, just reverse it. Quit looking downfield and quit going deep and in. Start from your check down and then go out.
Ted Ginn had a crazy year.
Right, and then he ran into like one of the best defensive secondaries. So it's like, no, you're going to kill. You hit your check downs. Hit Olsen at 5 yards and on those outs. Hit Tolbert on your check down chips. Like, do that to stop that defense and just grind it down the field. I was saying that. I was also saying, I can't believe you got that fucking kickoff against fuck you, Patriots. You stole that one from me. And my baseball team is actually, I have to double check this, but I'm 90% sure my baseball team is undefeated when they are in the playoffs and have 2 World Series.
Hey, I told you I was going to have sports topics on top of sports topics.
They are the Marlins, so they suck every other year except those 2 years. But yes.
I do actually have a Panthers-related sports question that was relevant this week. FanDuel tweeted out to all sports fans, but specifically to Panthers fans. So I waited. Gov had no idea this was coming. I did this on purpose. But they want to know, Gov, who is the best Panther? They nominated Cam Newton. They said, tell us we're wrong. Immediately, I said they were wrong. Who do you think is the best Panther of all time? And then, did you guys guess mine?
Okay, so I have a definitive. Okay, so tell you what, I have a definitive answer. I have a personal answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then I have an answer gun to my head. So which one do you want first?
Because I think that's the most transparent one. But give it to us all.
I agree.
Steve Smith might be the second, third best wide receiver of all time. Fuck you. I don't care. Randy Moss and Jerry Rice are the only people better than him.
Calvin Johnson?
Steve Smith would run circles around him and jump just as high at a foot less tall. That's what I
love me some Steve Smith.
All right. So gun to my head. Fuck you at Steve
Smith. Steve Smith reminds me kind of a specific player on the Lions.
Yep. Personally, I really loved Cam, and I would say Cam is my favorite player of all time.
My favorite,
but it's fucking Julius Peppers is the actual answer.
Okay,
so there you go. Gun to my head, it's Steve Smith. My favorite player really is Cam, but it's fucking Julius Peppers is the best Panther of all time.
Okay, so Donnie, what do you think? Because I'll tell you what our official. By the way, you guys can follow. I told you I'm a professional. You guys can follow our show on Twitter at Wheels Up DFS. If you want to find us, we're growing tremendously over there. I had an answer. I'll give it to you guys in just a second. Donnie, what was yours, and what do you think mine was? Response.
It was Steve Smith. But my favorite Panther ever is Luke Kuechly.
See, he's really good too. But we've had a lot of really good.
Long enough.
Technically, if for a middle linebacker, he got 8-9 years. Like that's not horrible. And
but
he was really good for those 8-9 years. But I only got 3 or 4 years out of Beeson. That was really good. And then like middle linebackers, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a lot of good ones for the Bears. Yeah. So it was it's hard to say
I have that.
But Julius Peppers for a long time was always a pass rushing threat, and he had the single season pass rushing record until Strahan broke it.
I had that moment too, though, with Luke Kuechly.
Me
So
bar broken.
shoot.
Let's not go there.
But Donnie, I had that moment with Luke Kuechly myself, but with a former Lion and DeAndre Levy, who I think was fantastic, but just for a very short amount of time. But in that small encapsulation, man, he was special to watch. So our official answer on the podcast for the podcast, as I represent the podcast on Twitter, was what?
I'd assume Steve Smith from you.
I would say Steve Smith. Just like gun to our head. It's Steve Smith.
I said, get out of here. It's not Cam Newton, essentially. You're wrong. I'll give you two names because I don't even think Cam is number 2 on that list. It is Steve Smith is the most important Panther of all time. Number 2.
He's definitely the most vocal.
The most impactful, like on the field performer for the Panthers was Peppers. And then
Agreed.
Cam Newton. So I'm glad because you mentioned both of them, Gov, without knowing my official answer. You and me were on the same wavelength, and I'm proud because you're.
Dude, I mean, we've had some really good Panthers. Like, don't tempt me if you were to give me like my greatest offensive lineman too, like Jordan Gross and then both Khalil brothers. If I actually would have had all them in their prime, fuck off.
Now hold on, bro, because I'm not saying Cam's bad. Cam being 3 on that list is very good, or even in the top 5.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think it's like I think it's a big gap from 3 to 4, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, there's their top 3. Then you're talking like Kuechly or one of the other defensive guys, or
Right. Like it's a
or the
jump.
run, but we've been through so many running backs. Like maybe you go to Keyshaw or like who was our foundational guys. Like that's when you start getting. It's like okay, now it's these guys. They're all about they're really good guys for our.
That's like A tier compared to S tier
franchise. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I hate it when people leave teams when they are historically known for one franchise. Yeah. So I love that Luke Kuechly retired early.
To be fair, like in our short franchise, because we've only been around since mid '90s, those would be our 3 generational talents that everyone agrees on, no matter what. Cam was a generational quarterback. Steve Smith was one of the best wide receivers we've ever seen. And Julius Peppers is one of the best defensive ends that has ever played. They're all Hall of Famers. Of my short franchise, those are 3 certifiable Hall of Famers.
You guys can attest to this. I told Gov 3 things when we started this podcast. I want to have fun. I don't want to worry about what everyone else is doing. I want us to do this show for ourselves. And if nobody watches it, we're at least going to make good DFS content for ourselves. We're going to try to make money, for ourselves. And that will be enough, financial, incentive to do it. But hopefully over time, we gain the credibility and respect. But we're going to do it with transparency and fun behind it. We're not going to change our image. We're not going to cut our hair. We're not going to try to do something that we're not. And so that in that way, I'm a big fan of Cam Newton. He didn't care, he didn't fall victim to the race baiting stuff when they tried to make him, he didn't fall victim to
he came out even that rookie year. I remember he came through, he worked with all the coaches. He did everything that he needed to do. He came out looking actually pretty fucking solid by the end of year 1.
Right. And
you knew you could build the team around him. It's just then it was down to purely the experiment of the running quarterback in the NFL. How long can it last? And I think, honestly, Cam got about as long as you can before the hits of being a running quarterback.
Especially because he embraced the hits.
Tear you. Right. Oh, yeah, even more so. But he was also bigger than almost any other quarterback that could.
Right. So, Big Ben did it well.
That's why I think
he was an extreme Big Ben.
But he was also Big Ben was also not a running quarterback. So
but he ran a lot and took a lot of hits.
Right. He would scramble, but his scrambles would still be quarterback scrambles. So he could learn how to take those hits with his big body pretty well. Whereas there's times Cam's just getting blindsided by a guy who has to catch him.
We saw him get flipped. Literally flipped. I mean
Well,
And he embraced it and
That's
celebrated
what I mean. Like, that's why I think Cam is a good blueprint. You build someone as big and as strong as you can to be the quarterback position and still have the speed and mobility to move
Isn't
around
it
and be a running
funny?
quarterback. And then how long can that last?
Yeah.
Taking
Isn't it
NFL
funny,
hits.
though?
And he got like
They-
7 years. That's about it.
Yeah,
Before he was really done.
the Panthers went from one of the biggest running quarterbacks we've ever seen to probably the smallest we've ever seen. And we saw it didn't. We saw it didn't work out long term with the big guy.
hold on to that because you don't watch a ton of college. Like I think Young is going to transcend this small guy narrative. Like
He's going to be the
big on the narrative.
I've come around the corner a little bit on this. I've been out there saying I did not like the pick. I wish we would have taken Stroud. I'm coming around the corner. My fandom's starting to help bubble it up. I feel like Bryce Young is going to be the greatest quarterback that you will ever see for as long as he's healthy in the league. And I don't know I don't know how long that's going to be.
but Gov, that's fair because
It might be one game, but
he will immediately be Drew Brees in his prime for an indeterminate amount of time.
Donnie, I know you're trolling a bit for a second, but let's be honest, and we'll be transparent. Gov would take Luke Kuechly for 6 years again.
Right.
I would go through another if I could get 5 or 6 out of Bryce Young. It's less than Cam, but I guess at this point I'd take it for everything we had to put into him. I need him to be good.
But if Bryce Young if he's transcended for 5 years and retires early because of injuries, so be it. So did Calvin Johnson, and he was, he was
one of the most electrifying players I've ever heard in my life.
But physically.
Oh, agreed. Megatron. It's Megatron.
But he was a skyscraper, so don't just do it on size. And that's I think it's cool that people will have different dimensions because it does give people hope. It's the same as when you see I'll be honest, when you see a diverse character on a Disney show or a gay character or a lesbian character or a disabled character, it's people can dislike those things, but I'm telling you as a disabled person myself or someone that's disenfranchised, that stuff matters, the fact that Bryce Young is our size and he isn't the traditional jock, 6 foot guy,
Fuck you, our size. I'm 5 inches taller than that bastard. This is ridiculous.
Right, but the fact that he is a midget or he is a small guy or the fact that I even use the word midget, not small, those things all matter.
Well, no, to be fair, I'm Cam size. I'm 6'5", 260.
If I full on worked out for 3 years, I'd be bigger than Bryce Young.
That's the problem. That's my problem. That's the problem. It's okay. There's been good short quarterbacks. There's been good short quarterbacks.
There has, though. There has.
There has. And
But
he's going to be the next really good short one for
he's going to be what
he's able to play in the
Murray.
league. For as long as he's able to play in the league. He's going to be better than Kyler Murray because he doesn't like Call of Duty. It's fine. It's okay. He's a good noodle. He's a good noodle.
Let me make one more transitional point here before we got into our last topic of the NFL.
Well, I have one more NFL topic after yours. Okay,
fair. But let me just make this one quick point. Everyone says that Steph Curry couldn't play in the 90s. And maybe they're right. And that was a valid argument that he was too small, the ankle and Davidson. Now, it is funny that the Currys came from Carolina just like Bryce Young. And now everyone's saying, oh, this quarterback's too small. He's, his skill set was good at this level, but it was transcendent, but it's not going to transition to the pros. Remember, people were saying the same thing about Steph Curry's threes. And maybe they're right. Maybe in the 90s, with the way they used to get away with hits, hits to the head, targeting wasn't really a thing. You could just blast a guy, especially at late. You could blast quarterbacks super late. But now with the offensive lines, with the rules, this might be the perfect time for a small quarterback in all transparency.
Yeah.
It does remind me of the Curry kind of transition. Maybe they're right in the 90s. Curry couldn't get the threes off the way he can now. But with the landing space of the NBA, he can. So can Bryce Young, do the same in football? We're going to find out. Donnie, what were you going to say?
I just had some news out of Patriots training camp and everything. Tyquan Thornton looking pretty good year 2. And I know we talked about him and when we were doing our best ball thing a little bit. I mentioned his name, and he went before it. But
No, I want to draft him.
I know you want it. I know you like the name. So if that's something you're looking out for, yeah, you might want to. They're supposed to. Bill O'Brien's going to want you to throw a couple deep balls now.
Well, that's also why I want some Patriots, because I do think having Bill O'Brien back, we're going to see more. And that's why we got him, to be honest. We got Juju. I think Juju's going to have a fantastic year with the Patriots. I really do.
So I just wanted to point that out. But
I love the rookie, the wide receiver that Gov's got on his team. Hopefully we can get him in a best ball share. I like Rice. There's a lot of guys. Pay attention to the best ball, by the way, guys. Keep drafting. Keep having fun with that. Speaking of expansion teams and people that don't get enough credit, there's this really cool idea, and I have to bring it up. Now, whether you guys want to follow it, whether you guys want to watch the show, and it's, and it's full iteration. I don't want to rip these guys off completely, although they don't really need us because they're much bigger. They did do us a huge favor. I love this idea so much, guys, that I tweeted them. I wanted to thank them for what they did, and I'll play the video here and snippets in just a few minutes and give you guys an idea what happened. But what they did was really awesome, and then what they did was even more special, and it helped us out tremendously. They retweeted my link and my love for this show, and it literally got us 12 viewers. So literally people that are watching this podcast might be because of this podcast right here, and my appreciation for them. So to give back, I did kind of want to give their idea because I do think it's an awesome idea. And then if we wanted to follow it, past this point, I'd almost think about doing like a DraftKings lineup every week with their idea, and it'll make more sense when I play the video, but I just kind of want to set it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the first 5 minutes to tell you what they did exactly, and then like the last iteration to show you how their teams got structured and kind of a recap of it. And I also got a couple still images of it as well. But unless you guys got any questions, I was just going to play the video because I think that's the best way to explain it.
Just make sure, it's not too long so we don't get the copyright stuff.
It's okay if we do because we're not really monetized anyways. But thanks, Donnie, for looking out.
Yeah. Listen.
If you
we still have to follow the rules. We still have to follow the rules.
I was about to say, yeah, it's okay.
We got 3 strikes. They want to come at me for not being monetized. Go ahead.
Andrew Boll has joined us because, Sam, he's done all the hard work for us. Mm-hmm. He set up the expansion draft. He suggested it, and also
a little louder or too loud?
Little loud. It's a little loud in my ears.
I'm going to have to turn your speakers down, son. Here we go.
So went the extra mile to set the whole thing up so we could just click some buttons and draft a team. Yeah. No, we wouldn't do all this work.
God, no.
Andrew did it. Andrew, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So this is what happens. If you're a listener and you do the hard work, sometimes might let you on the show. So, Andrew, give us a little background on the expansion draft and the rules here. You're like the commissioner of this league. So kind of, set the tone for us here.
Sure. So the first thing I did was kind of went through what the rules would be and pulled heavily from like the 1995 and 2002 expansion drafts. I also looked back on like the NHL expansion drafts with Las Vegas and Seattle because those are a little more recent, and incorporated a few rules from there that I liked. But the basic rules kind of all followed the same outline where you get to protect a certain number of players. You can select a maximum number of players per team. They couldn't be free agents or restricted free agents. For this, for our purposes here, I said no punters, kickers, or long snappers, and then kind of left out fullbacks because those aren't fun.
Right.
I feel like a lot of teams would make their fullback available. And then one rule I kind of tweaked and pulled from the NHL expansion drafts was They had to make at least 2, so 6 players made available per team, and at least 2 of them had to either have played 500 snaps in the previous year or have 5 years of experience. And that was kind of, the NHL did something similar where they had to play a certain number of games, but the spirit behind the rule being you had to offer some players that actually had a chance of playing next year. You couldn't just offer guys 48 through 53 on your roster.
Great. No, that's good. I love it. And so again, appreciate the research. There's a lot of if-then statements there. There's a lot that you had to take a look at. So there are some bigger names on this list for those that might question, hey, is this realistic? Is this something that would happen? I know in the 2002 expansion draft, Tony Baselli, future Hall of Famer, was on the list and was the first pick by the Houston Texans. Never played for the Houston Texans, but do we have a similar group of players here in the list that you put together?
Yeah, definitely. When I went back and looked, especially in 2002, like there was kind of 2 buckets that the players made available fell into. It was either backup roster guys or guys on contracts you'd kind of like to get out of. So like your Jags, for example, they had 3 players selected in that draft, and that didn't include Keenan McCardell, who was made available coming off a 1,000-yard season. But the Jags were kind of in salary cap hell, so they kind of used it as a get out of jail free card. So there are some guys like Chandler Jones is kind of the best example where like his cap hit is $17 million or something like that, and he wasn't all that productive for the Raiders last year. So I think the Raiders would love to be out of that contract. One wrinkle that I think if we were doing like an actual expansion draft, that would be fun, like a real one, is in the NHL, you could attach picks to players that you just really wanted to be out of their contract. So like the Raiders could pay an expansion team a 3rd-round draft pick or whatever to select Chandler Jones.
Ooh.
So kind of like the Brock Osweiler trade where they're attaching draft capital to take this player. Be a little difficult for our purposes here, but I thought that'd be a fun wrinkle if this were to actually happen.
Yeah, that'd be good. Like, I'm this desperate to get rid of this contract. We will pay you a 2nd-round pick to take it off our hands.
I love that.
So what I want to do now is I'm going to play just a few more minutes of this, and then we'll jump ahead here. What are you guys' initial questions? Because I watched this whole video. I think this is a really cool idea because a lot of people are doing like predictions or they're doing like, draft recaps, but they wanted to take it in a unique way of like, okay, the Jags thought about going to London, or, we thought about expanding to Mexico. What if that actually happened? And that's a good way to talk about some of these more guys waiting for an opportunity. And they really did build out a team, and they had to do it under a structure, under a salary cap, with the idea that every team had to give up 1 player, but it had to be realistic. Do you have any questions, or like what's your initial thoughts of this idea?
If it's done right, it's cool.
Yeah, I was
But
about
you
to say,
just
like,
don't know.
it's a nifty idea, but like, it's a fantasy draft. They're like,
Yeah, it's too hard to really.
What if, like, an hour long? What if we were to have an expansion draft, but you don't actually have any like. It's this guy making the player pool of the guys he thinks the teams would let through.
Which I'm sure he did a good job on.
Right, like I'm sure it's solidly accurate, but it's not exactly. And then who's actually drafted? And then it's just what these 2 guys would draft the team. So like
these 2 guys are essentially they're drafting.
Like if this guy put that software out where like we could do our own draft against each other.
I spoke to this guy for our podcast, under our podcast. And just showed him appreciation for this idea. I do think that's in the works. I do think and that's kind of why I want to introduce it.
See, that would be fun. I wouldn't mind doing that. But right. Like, to be fair, like I don't watching it doesn't really. The idea is interesting, but not enough where I would want to watch it.
Right. So
I wouldn't mind doing it. Like it's like, yeah, I'd be if I had a group of people or someone who wanted to draft against me or like. It's just
if we had like a 3-person draft war room.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
So let me finish up with this guy. He's going to talk to just a few more minutes on the rules, and then I'm going to skip ahead and show you guys.
Well, I think we got the rules kind
Yeah,
of.
I've got the rules basically. Like, get to the show us a clip of them drafting something.
So what I can do now is I'll go skip forward and pull up their teams in completion, and then but they're going to recap it at the very end here. I got it time stamped. They recap their teams. Are you guys ready? Should be about here.
I'm not upset by that. J.C. Jackson, David Bakhtiari were my big swings right off the bat. Elite potential players, albeit both coming off injuries to varying degrees, and J.C. Jackson coming off playing terribly for the Chargers until he got injured. So risk attached to them. You can throw Mekhi Becton into that bucket as well. Three guys that have a lot of talent, but have some fairly significant risk attached to them as well. Then we started to save money. Christian Benford, a 6th-round corner, played well, outperformed the 1st-round corner they had. Hit the secondary pretty hard. So J.C. Jackson, Christian Benford, Deron Bland kept going throughout the draft. Michael Ujamudia, Jalen.
I should mention, you guys might see they don't really have quarterbacks on their list. They're doing a full. This is just the like retired or the veteran players. They are doing a realistic draft too, where they are going to take the first pick of the actual draft, like 1 and 2, and then alternate snake version after that. So obviously, most likely they are going to draft their starting quarterback in the draft. So basically, they get the first pick, just like you would in any other expansion team, of the first round of every round in the NFL draft. So that's why, and if you guys wanted to finish the series, that's where you would start. But I do think it's a cool idea. I'll let him finish his recap here in just a minute.
On Armour Davis, who I may have in my brain confused for Cameron Taylor-Britt slightly when I drafted him. These are issues that can be resolved down the line. Trey Brown at corner.
That's
the final
going to be
pick
a weird
draft.
meeting with him. Thought you were the Nebraska kid. Turns out you went to Bama.
Look, these are the perils of having a double-barreled name. So yeah, the secondary was a big focus. Offensive line and special teams were a big focus.
They were.
Yeah.
As Drake mentions in the chat, his eyes will be glued to the TV when your punt units are out there.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do now is you guys can see, like, I do think it's a cool idea, though, again, not to just rehash, like, the predictions type stuff. It's just another way of, like, talking about some of the younger, more, like, what to expect. You know, will this guy develop conversations? And I'll pull up the other guy's team here, and we can kind of go through and see which team you guys like better. But any other thoughts on the idea? You can totally tell me that it's terrible. I just thought it was unique at the very least.
Well, I would want to do it if I had the ability. Like, it's fun.
Well, that's the thing is, you have to support it though, Donnie, for the technology to become available. I do think obviously doing it would be a lot more fun. And so, like, that's kind of why I want to shout it out, because they did shout us out and get us some attention. So if we shout them out, then hopefully, you know, this stuff does become available, because you're right, it would be tremendously, you know, entertaining to watch. I'll pull up the other guy's team just now so we have something to compare it to. Any other thoughts, though?
After looking at that first team, now I am very curious about what the player pool was, because, like,
J.C. Jackson's got to be the best player, right?
My thought is, like, I can't believe they would have been the guys left available. Like, I don't think Packers. I know the contract's not great, but I don't think they would be.
Hey, we can finish watching the recap. I mean, I can go back and show you Steve's recap of his team, but this was what it was. So the guy talking before was Sam. That was his team. Sam, you told this is Steve's team. But that's the thing is, like, they have to manage their whole salary cap. So, like, they have to save $10 million for the rookies. So you heard him in the beginning talk about how Chandler Jones was available. He was not drafted by either one of these guys because he was like $16 million. So they didn't want to spend that because they want to save that for, you know, Kareem Hunt, who is a free agent, who they are going to go and get after the draft. So they're going to do the draft and then free agency of the remaining free agents.
I just want to point out this team has 2 fan favorites of ours, personal favorites.
Corey Davis, right?
You got Jerry Jacobs, your guy at the corner. That's his name, right? And we got Noah Gray, my guy.
Hey, Jerry Jacobs, by the way, is a fan of this podcast, has tweeted us directly, spoken to me directly. Cool dude. I'm actually going to send him, a screenshot of this, that he's on this guy's team. This guy mentions how he's a fan of Jerry Jacobs. So, like, it's a cool symbiotic thing that you mentioned that, Donnie. I like this idea. You guys can follow this again. It's on PFF. It's a really cool idea. Their draft show is out. I haven't watched their draft show yet.
Interesting. Malik Willis is here.
Would you guys be interested in following?
Loved the name Noah, didn't he?
Steve would tell you and we can go back and listen if you guys are interested even, but he drafted specifically on first round bust because he believes that first round bust there was a reason they were first rounders. So he took a lot of former first rounders on this team. Would you guys have any interest in following the team and breaking it down? Like, obviously, we might not be able to watch full on videos, but like,
not really, because free agency wouldn't be any cent of realistic. Like, how many free agents would want to sign with a team like that? Yeah.
They can offer money, though.
And depending on where the team is, like, I can offer you extra money. You could be the star on the team. You get to live in London. I don't know.
Right. Well,
one was a London team I saw. I believe the other team was London.
Yeah, and the other guy picked his high school team to compete against the Patriots. He said the Patriots are were like the crown jewel of the NFL. So he wanted literally to build from the ground up in Massachusetts to give the other massholes another perspective of what a bad team would look like. So they're having fun with it too. Like, I think that's cool. It's like they're taking it serious, but they're also having fun with it. I do think like a Kareem Hunt would sign with a team like that. I just think it's a cool idea. It's a cool thought experiment. So what I thought was week 1, when their full teams are complete, right, guys? When we got their full roster, because they're going to come up with a full-on depth chart and everything. Like, they claim they're going to do this for at least 3 years. I was thinking it'd be cool for at least week 1 to put these teams in a DK lineup and track it and see how it does. Obviously,
I don't even know how we do that.
Yeah. Well, leave that up to me. That's part of the creative juices that's got to boil. But I did think this was a cool idea. Again, they tweeted it out, so I had to give them some love here. Would you guys be in favor of doing a NFL? We talked about, I think, doing a whole like prediction show on the NFL, but give the people a sneak behind the Owls curtain, if you will. What kind of football content would you guys want to do so that way I can build out some graphics, build out some ideas for our next show as
For
we
the off
wind down
season,
here?
or when the season comes around?
For any point in the season, Don, if you got a really good idea, but I'm talking more off season. Would you want to do more best ball breakdowns? Because I do think I would kind of like to go through our picks again in a couple weeks, like having a fresh perspective on it and seeing if we like the pick and kind of like did that almost like a fine wine. Did this pick age well? Would we still make it? Are we still comfortable? Like kind of like our version of training camp, if you will. We selected these guys in the draft. Now let's give the people the update. How are they performing in our training camp mindset? Like, are we happy that we have T.J. Hawkinson? Because I'll tell you one sneak peek of that. And why I love everything I'm hearing about Trevor Lawrence.
Right, me too.
Like, I wanted Trevor Lawrence in that draft. Like, I was so happy we got him in our best ball draft, guys. But the more I hear about him, I'm like, I think we might have got a steal.
He seems like he's what was advertised to us in the draft.
And another guy I've been hearing a lot about, this is Gov's guy. There's a rumor that Chuba Hubbard could be your number 1 running back. Gov, if that's true, and we get away with him at number one, our running back problem is not a problem anymore, and our team
Even
looks
if he's a
very
rotation
good.
guy, man, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Guy who
but I'm
scores
saying for
three
the zero RB running back build that we have, I'm saying if we can count on Stevenson, who we know is projected to be the number one guy, if he's definitely the number one guy, and one of these Chuba Hubbard guys becomes the guy, I mean, we're right up there. Another statistic I wanted to bring up because I just loved our team so much and started doing deeper dives. Joshua Kelly did not get very many attempts last season. He averaged about six rushes a game, but he was one of the most efficient running backs when on the field. If that goes up, or if he gets traded because they want to go on from Isaiah Spiller, I do think he was a fantastic round 17 pick.
Mhm.
So what do you guys have any offseason ideas? Because that was one of mine, the best ball idea. Kind of like in a couple weeks, we go back to and we look at our full roster and we kind of give our almost like a refreshed report card on our roster. Would you guys be interested in that?
We know we wanted to. That's a good idea. We know.
Yeah, I
we
don't mind
wanted to-
reviewing that. I
we
wouldn't
know
even
we
mind
wanted
doing
to agree
another.
to that, the
I was about to
prediction.
say, I definitely wouldn't mind doing another best ball, like maybe around that point. Like we could review ours and then do another one. Because I do think the best times to do it are either early or right before.
Well,
But I also wouldn't mind doing one every once in a while.
I'm definitely going to do one right before because I want to compare and contrast. We did one at the very beginning, and I wanted to be single entry or something close to it because I just think I personally, this would be my best ball advice to you guys: don't chase the $10 150 entries on DraftKings for daily. Don't do that for best ball either. Don't fall in love with the milli. Obviously, if that's what you want to do, this isn't financial advice, so do what makes you happy. But for me to get entertainment, I actually want a realistic vision to win, and so single entry just fits my mindset so much better. So find a contest that fits your mindset, but don't go into the $10 milli thinking oh, this is a great structure. It's not. It really isn't. You could win it, and it's still not a good structure. So when you enter these contests, know the structures you're entering. I'm only entering single entries. I think they're the best type of contest, but they're kind of what I want to do with my entertainment. So that would be my advice. Anything else, Donnie? I think you were about to say something.
Well, I know we started off the show with high energy excitement.
Yeah.
I kind of want to end it with the disappointment and low energy of the USFL. So if you want to get that graphic up.
It's terrible.
I can't even I've
It's
tried.
It's so unwatchable, in my opinion.
And
I'm sure
I don't
people that
even
like
know
it.
why. I was watching a whole quarter, and I don't get why it wasn't the XFL at least.
I know why. Because they acted like they belonged, Gov, and they wanted to be so much better than the XFL, and they know they're not the NFL, but so they tried to pick on the chicken bone that they could. They tried to pick at the bone that they thought they could swim in, and it came off very petty. At least
You
to
know
me.
what? It's almost like what the XFL did their first time around, where they tried to, pick on the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. That ruined it for me. I'm gonna be honest. That truly did. The whole idea.
I didn't like it. I didn't like the advertisements of real football is back and all that. Because, you know what, to me, the XFL was real football. Just slight different rules that gave it extra kick here and there.
Let's talk about that then, because let's talk about the XFL and then we'll talk about the USFL and their mistakes. Because we do got some. You talked about the downside of Summer League. We really enjoyed XFL. I think this podcast was one of the few podcasts that covered the XFL. And the reason we didn't was because in the playoffs was because I am transparent. I only bring you content that we believe in. And it wasn't that the playoffs were bad.
And the championship was very fun.
It was. But I thought DraftKings let the XFL down. I'll be honest, their contests for the playoffs were shit. And I thought it was a disappointment on DraftKings' perspective because I thought it could be very fun, but they were terrible. They didn't have enough information. I thought some of their pricing was off, so it just killed it. But when there was a lot of options, when the season was at its full force, I really enjoyed building our lineups. What did you think, Gov, of like the XFL as a whole, and then like from a gambling perspective, how fun was it to build lineups every week?
I mean, the lineups, like, I love building lineups because I'm doing that all the time anyway. It's one of the things I enjoy doing. So like it wasn't quite NFL. The lineups aren't quite the same, but I remember them from when they had shown up before. It was a good time.
Am I being harsh?
And then like the games were good. Like there were a few clunkers early, but mostly the games were good.
But the season was fun because of the strategy, because you had games on Sunday and then Monday, and then like you had a random Tuesday.
Yeah, every weekend was kind of different. Sometimes you had the Thursday game. Sometimes it was 2-2, 3-1.
So I think that built some good, fun excitement and like different ways to build. I thought the playoff pricing was terrible by DraftKings. That has nothing to do with the XFL product, because I thought the product was great. And actually, I bet every playoff game. Like I just turned to the sports book because I just thought the pricing of the contest was just terrible for the playoffs. But during the season was fantastic.
Well, here's the thing: with the real football is back, that really annoys me. Clearly, we thought it was real football because we watched it and we acknowledge it as football. A lot of NFL teams acknowledge this as real football, because a lot of people got out to training camps and stuff.
Donnie, I'm going to bring my friend on. I'm going to try to do this next week, actually, because we had this argument. He was like, the XFL is not that good. If they were that good, you could tell me, 13 players that played in the league that are still relevant. And I'm like, dude, I can right now off the top of my head. The practice squad guys, like, sure, you have to be an NFL fan to know these guys. They're like four stringers, but they made NFL teams. And I promised him, I'm like, I'll put money on the line. I'll bet you that there is 5 people on this list that I have pulled up on the screen right here. And you guys know this. There's at least, I told him there's at least 10 people that will make an impact for next season from the XFL.
Well, here's the thing. Like that long snapper, he has a real chance to win that job.
Exactly, Donnie. But that's exactly my point. I challenged my friend. I said, are you just the asshole that acts like the XFL is like the secondary league because you don't know enough football, because you don't appreciate the gunner position of football, because you don't appreciate the small nuances of special teams? Because if we're being honest, these XFL guys are coming in shape. They're coming in shape. They're coming in with a competitive spirit. And they're coming in with the whole, hey, we know this was our second chance. Like, we're not calling this a secondary league, Gov and John, but this was a second chance for people. This meant something.
You're like, people aren't going to tell me that Seattle didn't send at least a scout to a Seattle game to watch Pearson.
I told him, I said, dude, you watch a ton of college.
Do you think they just saw the DB play well in the playoffs and win the title for Arlington then? And that's why they gave him a...
Right. Well, Gov, he asked me, he's like, come on, Logan, how much of these people do you think actually make a team? And I told him 10. I told him 10 XFL players will make a active day impact. Now, I'm not saying like active day roster. What's that, Donnie?
All you need to do is look at Turpin from the USFL.
Well,
he had a huge impact for the Cowboys. Huge.
He knows Turpin is like, this little fun guy, right? But he wouldn't be able to. But that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, dude, that's your ignorance. So I want to get him on the show to like not expose him, but to expose this idea that like it's okay if you don't watch MAC football, if you don't watch college football.
I don't watch college football. I don't know many of the rookies coming in.
Right. But you're also not in the 6th round of the draft recap shows, Donnie, trying to tell the analyst or ESPN in the 6th round.
I
on
acknowledge
Sunday.
that somebody in the 7th round can come in and be a Hall of Famer.
Exactly. You acknowledge because you saw it with your team. That's what I'm saying. But you're not initially saying like Tom Brady is a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Or
I
this
acknowledge the importance of Matthew Slater, and all he's done his whole career is be a gunner.
Right. And that was my point to this. I'm like, dude, I'm not saying you should have watched the XFL. I'm not even saying you have to like it. But to act like these players are a second tier because you didn't take the time to learn them, that's okay. But take the time now because these guys are legit. And let's talk about some of these guys. Mac Borgi, I think, is as good as any third string guy in the NFL currently. Like I think he's going to make the Cleveland Browns because they don't really have anything behind Chubb.
That actually could. You're not wrong there.
They really don't.
Be hit on Tony Ortiz. You're going to tell me Pearson doesn't at least make the practice squad?
Pearson has shown more upside playing in the XFL than Eckridge did in his time in the NFL because now he was hurt for some of it, and then he played for a small school in Western Michigan. So he doesn't have a lot of exposure, and he was hurt in the NFL. He's done as much as a professional as Pearson. Maybe Pearson's done more in terms of exposure. So he has a chance to make the team. This didn't even highlight guys like Danucci, who's already been on a team. AJ McCarron could have played 100%, said he had offers to be at least a third string guy, if not a second string guy for some teams, and chose to play in the XFL because he wanted to play in a starting role for his kids. Chose it. Or he could have went and worked in the booth, which you can say, well, that's not football. But he could have been around the booth for Fox or one of these other networks and been around professional football. So get it out of your head that these guys are some kind of amateur, bush league guys. They could have had other professional jobs and chose the XFL. The Rock has brought back credibility to this league.
Well, let's just say in the hypothetical scenario, a scout or two got sent to a Seattle game to watch Pearson. Seattle sent a couple scouts, and that game happened to be against Arlington. And they saw a matchup between Evans and Pearson. I don't know if that actually happened, but it's just, and they liked what they saw out of both guys.
Yeah.
That's very possible.
Well, I think Gov mentioned it before. Sam Cannella has the physical ability to make an NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
But
again, with Cannella and Borgi, what if Cleveland sent a scout and it was Arlington versus Houston?
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
But
it's true.
Let's also be honest. When I say make a team, I'm talking about 53-man roster here. Like in the words of Nate Diaz when he beat, Conor McGregor, he didn't have to believe in me then, motherfucker. I'm here now, motherfucker. And they are on NFL teams. Like, we're not saying they could make NFL teams. They're currently on them. Now, is it training camp? Is it practice squad? Yes.
No, you got to beat out 40. What is it? No.
Teams are at like
70? They're at 90
now. You got to cut the. They're at 90. Is it 90? Yeah, and you got to cut to all. Once you get to the end, you're cutting to what? 56.
53.
Yeah.
So 37 players. These guys. Well, 36 players. They have to beat out basically 37, 36 players.
And they made different practice squad rules like emergency quarterback this year, which I think is a cool
that's a very good rule that we should hit on the rules next time.
And we'll hit on that next
because
time. Well, Donnie, all I wanted to mention was when I say they're going to make teams, I mean the 53-man roster. A lot of these guys are going to make practice squads. But even that, okay, let's be honest. We know people that think they are good enough to make practice squad teams that couldn't even sniff. And I've used the phrase, "Oh, you had a cup of coffee in the NFL." Of course, that's an acronym to basically mean you were on a practice squad. But even that is an accomplishment. I'm talking about guys like...
Listen, if you get a paycheck from a national football team and
Right.
you do on the practice squad, you're an NFL player.
Yeah. Even Josh Johnson, who got brought in, as more of a, camp arm at times, like you got to
He
understand.
took a lot of attempts, but he made an NFL team, and he's on an NFL team still to this day.
PJ Walker, who used
True.
to play, like, all I'm saying is, like, to be at that level, it takes something. And to wrap this up, because I won't go past an hour and a half here. Gov and Donnie, to your point, and I'm glad we did it this way. We can reverse engineer it now. The USFL failed because they tried to be something they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to
USFL is officially a failure, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with their talent. They have, the XFL had what? Josh Gordon.
Yep.
They had Martavius Bryant, who didn't pan out. So they had guys that panned out because Gordon played pretty well. Martavius Bryant didn't play well, but they were some of the bigger names at the time. The USFL had those names too. Kirkus played last year for them, played very well. And then they had Penny Sewell's family member play for the Stars as well. And then they brought in Coleman, the wide receiver that used to play for the Cleveland Browns. Corey Coleman, I believe is his name.
Yep.
They had NFL players or former NFL player calibers, but they were,
and I'm sure they still do.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. But they were so gun-ho on trying to prove that they were the big dog that they forgot to bark. That's the way I put it. They were trying to, piss on their territory so hard that they forgot to bark. And it's like you didn't even establish your boundary before trying to go into someone else's yard. And that was their biggest mistake.
Yep. It's like a virus that started to show up early, so we find a cure for it.
Well, Donnie, one of the biggest successes the XFL had, I don't even know if you know this, but they brought in Destroying, one of the younger YouTubers, to do like their pregame stuff, right?
Yeah, with Marquette King. Because Marquette King and him are best friends.
Yeah, he came up with an idea where they would like do this. What was it like? Think of it like an NBA contest where it's like a 3-point shooting contest or like a dunk contest. It was like a side project. And it was like one-on-one contest with like celebrities and like, different influencers, and they would include fans, and there was buy-ins, and then it was like one-on-one contests, like at halftime and before the games. And that blew up. And it became this thing. And he actually got Justin Jefferson to dress up and actually show up to an XFL game and compete in this contest. And then they were like, you know what? We're going to put this man Destroying on our broadcast because he gets more views on his YouTube channel than the XFL is getting right now. They didn't big time themselves on it and say, we're ESPN. We don't need this YouTuber. The name ESPN.
Fox will pay it.
What's that?
They thought Fox can pay off all their issues.
Well, that's what the USFL did. That's my point. Is that the XFL, they leaned in. Hey, we're a smaller franchise. We're a smaller football organization. We could use all the attention we can get. And if this younger, cool YouTuber has this influential idea, let's embrace it. And they put him on the sidelines as a sideline reporter. And, they did some goofy things, but they tried things. And they didn't try to be anything else than they were. They just tried to have fun. And I don't know, maybe they were assholes behind the scenes, but truly it came off as if they were having fun. The USFL came off like they were trying to be the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
That's honestly
the USFL first season. We thought, it wasn't a success. We thought.
Well, with my last few minutes here, and I'll switch it over to you guys if you guys have yours, and we'll get out of here before the hour and 30-minute mark. But that was what it was to me. You could switch the rosters. Give me the USFL roster, and I'll give them the XFL roster, and they still fail because their presentation was wrong. It just was.
Well, I tuned into a game today, like I said, And there was a point where, and I get technical difficulties will happen and whatnot, but they stopped the game for, I think it was 15 minutes because, like, just there was an issue with the presentation. Can't happen. The league has not got enough attention to let that happen.
And here's the thing, though, because we saw this in the XFL. They had a problem, right? They immediately kicked it over to destroying. And I hate to bring, but this is what they did. And they brought him down on the sidelines, and he like interviewed the players and like had really cool, like they had a plan.
They showed you highlights from the game before and everything, and just highlights.
That's bad to me. That's like, golf does that when there's a rain delay, and I just don't think it works. I think golf has a lot more pedigree, and they have a lot more to draw from, and still they'll lose viewership. I don't like that. That's not a good idea. Gov, I don't know if you know this, but I'll give you your last thought on this. The XFL not only was a success, they are expanding their draft deeper than they planned on because it was such a success. So they're doing an extra. They already admitted they're doing a draft. They're doing an extra 2 rounds because they found so much interest from a fan's perspective and a player interest.
Well, that bodes well.
Yeah, apparently they were going to do a 3-round draft. It is now going to be 5 rounds. I couldn't have been prouder. I really couldn't have been. I tweeted all the XFL followers. I thanked them all. I said thank you. It was the fans. It was everybody. Everyone contributing to this. So we will continue to make XFL lineups because I enjoyed it. I thought the product was good. Any last thoughts, Donnie? Because I know this was one of your topics you wanted to bring up before we close. How proud are you?
I loved the XFL when I had a chance to watch it. I didn't have much chances to watch it, but when I tuned and I liked it, I had a coworker who liked it. We haven't talked football since. You know why? Because he doesn't watch the USFL either.
That's to tell you something. There's a reason you watch it, and if you don't have that draw, you don't have that draw. And that's the problem is the USFL tried to manufacture that draw, and the XFL just gave you football and was hoping that they would do it in a unique enough way that you'd want to watch. Donnie, what's the thing that you're looking forward to with the XFL next year?
I'm ready to see the undrafted free agents that didn't make a roster and are struggling to make rosters. Go in and be, coming next year and prove their worth.
Okay, we shit on the USFL a lot. Let me give you one bit of positive news.
And if the USFL shuts down and they all transfer too,
yeah. Well, let me give you one positive note on the USFL. They did open up the transfer portal. That's what I'm calling it, a transfer portal for any undrafted rookie this season. If you did not sign with an NFL team, they did open it up. They can finish with the USFL.
That's good.
And some players have taken advantage of that. So I am immensely proud, that they get a second chance. And maybe that will raise the stock of that league. And hopefully it does, because competition is good. But I do think that was a good story, and I'm glad I remember that at the last minute. So there is no more Mr. Irrelevant. Hopefully, even though our show might be still irrelevant for some, hopefully you guys like and subscribe, and you join us next week because we do have more off-season content to come. Thanks for joining us, guys. Have
and
a good
finals
night.
content.
Oh, yes.
I think we already had our big moment, man. So if anything can come close to what we had. By the way, last thought. I know, Donnie, you're a fan of the Celtics, right? So this might be hard for you, but I would love it. I found a way to record our live responses. If I could jump on with you for each quarter, maybe give us a minute instant reaction, and then we can play our instant reactions on the podcast. But give us your instant reaction in the moment, just for a minute to 30 seconds. Would you guys be interested in that? And then we can string them all together and play them at the start of our podcast next week.
I could see doing that if
I could see doing that. Yeah, but I missed the first quarter because I'm at work.
Fair enough. All I need is just some instant reaction from you. And we don't need it to be very long.
So the halftime show is big for me because I catch up on first quarter.
Got you. Okay. maybe in like a fourth quarter, like what's your initial thoughts of this, and then we can just play that because like that's the money quarter anyways. Put your fours up if you will.
Yeah, third quarter's the big quarter. Fourth quarter's the money. Where's money made?
Speaking of money, I think this show's gone on long enough, even though we're not monetized. But I do want to get out of here.
10 seconds to get out of here before. Let's go.
And broadcast activated. Thanks for joining us, guys. Good night.
Have a good night.
Peace out.